now the oldest living person I've ever heard of is 115 years old. To what do you attribute your long life?
I had a lot of girlfriends.
Did you practice polygamy?
Practice? No, I was perfect at it.
Did you have wives that you were your favorites on different days?
Yes, on Monday my favorite was Rosa.
Mondays.
Mondays, yes.
What about Tuesdays?
It was Roberta.
Wednesdays?
It was Rochelle.
What about Thursdays?
New Rochelle.
On Fridays?
Lisa.
On Saturdays?
Roshaman.
On Sundays?
Oh, Susanna.
Who's your favorite wife of all time?
Oh, Susanna.
Why her?
She was unfaithful to me.
She cheated on you? She was your favorite? Why?
Yes, because finally on Sunday I get some rest. Yes, when I was 1,800 years old, I was a psychiatrist.
What was your first patient like?
Oh, I remember her very well. The problem was she couldn't stop ripping paper.
How did you cure her?
I said to her, "Stop ripping the paper!" And she stopped. Just like that.
What job do you hold today, now that you're 2,000 years old?
I'm an optometrist.
What's it like to be an optometrist?
Well, I do things a little bit different. See, I ask patients better one or better two. But the difference is I don't show them different lenses. Or better two.
And if they say two?
I say you're wrong.
Do you give your patients any advice?
Yes, I tell them don't fall. And I give other advice. I tell them to pay me.
And if they don't pay you?
I trip them. So a lot of patients are falling on their hands and knees in my office trying to get out.
Do you have a credo?
Yes, I do, but you need to hum a song if you want to hear it. Hum a little bit. Yeah, okay, yes, now I get it.
I'm not finished.
Be a friend to yourself. Every day, pat yourself on the back and shake your own hands. And take care of every part of your body as if it were your own. From the day you're born to the day you die, never leave the house. Because it might be raining, and there are tough guys everywhere. And then finally, if you find a woman who's kind to you, who loves you, who respects you, don't tell your wife about it. The oldest person on earth is said to be 115, almost 160 years old. He lives in Japan, and he attributes his longevity in part to looking at the sun and to doing things in moderation. He doesn't look 115, at least not to me. He looks maybe 110. And compared to him, my father's relatively young, because on February 8th, he will in fact turn 100. He lives independently in New York City. And he probably shares with this person in Japan that he has lucky genes. He doesn't have heart disease, he's never had cancer, he's got his faculties. But he was very unlucky almost 2 years ago. And he fell down the stairs of the house he lived in. He's lived in for more than 50 years. And he was hospitalized. But the fortunate thing was, he didn't break any bones, which is miraculous. But my mother, years before that, was not as lucky, because when she fell down, she died shortly afterwards. And more than a year ago, while I was jogging, I fell down. I was hospitalized. So I was in the emergency room for several hours. And the focus of this talk is preventing falls, particularly among the elderly. Neither optometrists nor primary care physicians, except for geriatricians, are trained, and I have to speak quickly so you'll be able to go to lunch on time, are trained to really prevent patients from falling. And I think this is a shame. because falls are a leading cause of death and injury, particularly among the elderly. And I think that the energy that optometrists have devoted to developing vision training programs, chiefly for children, should also be devoted to helping elderly people, trying to prevent them from falling down. Some of you may do this. I think it should be done generally. You could ask elderly people, for example, have you fallen? Did you really hurt yourself when you fell? How often have you fallen? Is there a pattern to when you fell? Could you describe where you live? Could you take photographs of where you live and bring it into the office? The last name of the first president of the American Association of Retired Persons is Andrews. And the AARP has partnered with the American Institute of Architects to create and build Andrews houses in different parts of the country. And you can call up someone at an Andrews house and ask to take a tour. There's an Andrews house in 18th Street Northeast in Washington. There's another one on Old Georgia Road in Tuckerton Lane. Example of what's in an Andrews house is that a wall-mounted mirror is tipped intentionally away from the top from the wall, so a person viewing their reflection doesn't have to stand up. There are electric stair lifts in the Andrews house, as another example. Many people live in what are called Peter Pan houses. They'll never grow up, they never grow old, they never fall down and injure themselves. The fact is that people 65 and older, on an average, fall down 3 times a year and often injure themselves. My internist, who's older than 70, recommends that middle-aged people should move from, if they're living in a townhouse, a multi-story home, to a ranch home, condominium unit, or an apartment house. One fall will, if it doesn't kill you, will radically affect your life. So it's important to prevent it for yourself and for other people. Now the risk factors, particularly for elderly people falling down and injuring themselves, comprise a mnemonic, which is O, again, I've fallen. O for obesity, particularly if you're elderly, if you're fat, and you fall down, you're more likely to injure yourself. A, activities of daily living losses, which would include, if you can't feed, bathe, clothe yourself in the ways you're accustomed, it's more likely you fall down and injure yourself. G, unsteady gait. A, again, if you fall down and injure yourself once, it's more likely to happen again. I, impaired cognition. There's a correlation between falling down and injuring yourself in elderly and developing dementia. It's not a cause and effect, just a correlation. I, infection. If you develop pneumonia, you're more likely to fall down and injure yourself. Hillary Rodham Clinton fell down and injured herself when she had some type of virus and was dehydrated. And I read a couple of days ago that she's wearing Cornell Prism glasses instead of contact lenses right now. D, vestibular disturbances. E, eye and ear problems. More about that in a moment. F, foot problems. A, alcoholism. L, lower leg problems. L, low blood pressure. E, environmental problems. M, neurological problems. People with Parkinson's, for example, who might be shuffling their feet, are more likely to fall down and injure themselves. Just because someone has had an eye examination does not decrease the risk of falling and injury, although there are elements of vision that correlate with fall injuries, which would include reduced contact, press sensitivity, reduced depth perception, reduced side vision. I wonder how often eye doctors typically test for these things, particularly among elderly people, and what they would do to improve these deficits in their patients. But there's one thing that optometrists and ophthalmologists typically prescribe for older people that can increase their risk of falling, namely bifocals, because either the top or the bottom of the segment are set for the distance to the stairs. So for some people, it might be beneficial to have single vision glasses just for negotiating stairs. There is no test that has been validated in large studies to predict the risk of falling and injuring yourself. But geriatricians might look at patients where they'd be asked, for example, to pick somebody up from a floor, to get up from a chair, when they're squatting, reaching over like this to grab something, to standing on a floor or on a mat to see how steady they are. There's never been any evidence in a large study, as far as I know, that education about falling is effective, prevents people from falling. Now, this week, Primary Care Optometry News headlined this. This is well after I came up with the idea of this talk about falling. And also, the Centers for Disease Control publishes, and you get this for free, something called Check for Safety about falling. And the company, large company Philips, which has a subsidiary Philips Lifeline, publishes a free booklet called Fitness about key avoiding falls, and another one called Reducing Fall Risk, the safety checklist, which you can distribute to your patients if you want to. Why is it that particularly elderly people, and I include myself in this, when they fall down, are more likely to injure themselves than younger people? When we age, our reflexes aren't as good. So when we fall down, we're not as quick to stick our arms out. And this is what happened to me. We hit our heads, okay, or we break our ribs. A man a couple of years ago, at the time was 100 years old, told me that he noticed that he had fallen and injured himself more often as he's gotten older. He's walking the sidewalk because the pavement isn't perfectly even. And he recognized at the age of 100 that he's not lifting his leg quite as high. And he told me that on D-Day, he landed on Normandy Beach with all the U.S. soldiers. So to keep himself from falling, he imagines he's back in the U.S. Army. So he tries to keep his legs higher when he's walking. That's what he's adapted to this. Now, if you fall down and you don't injure yourself, particularly elderly, you may very well develop a fear of falling, which can have the effect of being more likely that you will fall because you're more tempted to take a step, and you may reduce your physical activity. I went jogging this morning for about an hour, and part of that was over a little bit of ice and snow. And since I fell a year ago, I'm much more tentative and much more careful about jogging than it was 2 or 3 years ago. Okay? But what happens if you fall down and you do severely injure yourself? And this information is based on what happened to my father, basically. And I think that this happens to other people. So my father fell down the stairs of his house. He lives by himself. I call him every night. The night that it happened, I called him. I asked him for a telephone number. My father didn't tell me that he'd fallen. He lives in New York City. But he couldn't get me the telephone number. Normally he'd be able to get me a telephone number, looking up in his telephone book. Somebody the next day knows he didn't answer the door. But they managed to get into his house. He didn't want to go to the hospital. But this person insisted that he be hospitalized. So he was put into surgical ICU at North Shore, which is a very large hospital on Long Island. He was there for a couple of days. Even large hospitals have very few surgical ICU beds. It turns out he didn't break any bones, thank God. Then he was transferred to surgery, general surgery. When he was released from the hospital, it wasn't to go home. It was to go to what's called Parker Jewish Rehabilitation Institute on Long Island, which is a very large facility, not a nursing home. And it's good for people like this. And he was there for more than 3 weeks. Now, it's important to know that Medicare will pay for 3 weeks of care. If you don't have insurance other than Medicare, if you're there for 22 days, not 21 days, each day over 3 weeks will cost you at least $500. And you may not be in a state of mind when you're in the facility like this to realize that the social worker has told you, from now on, it costs you $500 a day. So you leave it and you get this huge bill. In the Physical Rehabilitation Institute, the person who's in charge of your life is a physical therapist, more than probably the physician. Unless the PT issues ambulatory orders, you're going to either be in a wheelchair or in bed, except for the time you're doing physical therapy, which isn't very long during the day. If you're healthy and you are fit and you're not allowed to walk, because the PT says you can't walk, you're going to maybe lose confidence that you can walk. Even if you're 13 years old, you're physically fit, you may be able to walk, but someone says you can't walk. What happened with my father was a neighbor came to visit him at the Rehabilitation Institute, and my father was in a wheelchair, and got my father down to the elevator to the first floor. The staff couldn't see my father, and my father got out of the wheelchair and he walked. But then he had to be taken upstairs, wasn't allowed to walk again, which is very debilitating in and of itself. And you're not doing very much physical rehabilitation. Basically, you're like a stationary bicycle. You're all allowed to walk. You're going to be using a walker. And the aide is going to be directly behind you, pushing a wheelchair. You don't have much confidence. First of all, they don't want you to fall again, particularly not in the Rehabilitation Institute.
Not on their time.
Not on their time. But when you actually leave there, for the first time in at least 3 weeks, you're going to have to get up from the wheelchair and walk. And it's very difficult to do that just to get into the car and to get out of the car afterwards. Now, what happens? Who decides where you go when you leave the Rehabilitation Institute? You don't want to go to a nursing home, probably. I don't think many people want to go to a nursing home. And just as we say there are developmental ages for children, there are developmental ages for older people, it said. Some elderly people have a developmental age of such and such and such and such and such and such. Now the PT may say, you need round-the-clock care. Round-the-clock care, if it's through an agency, will run you about $140,000 a year. Nursing homes, you'll have on the entrance assisted living, skilled nursing. Okay, very different in cost, but they average for assisted living in this area about $6,000 a month. And most people don't have long-term health insurance, which is very expensive. Only pays for a limited period of time. They say for that to kick in, you've got to be hospitalized first, depending on what the insurance contract is. So if you're going to be going home, and while you're in rehabilitation, someone has to hire a contractor to change your house around, depending on whether you're in a wheelchair, using a walker, what the situation is. You may need a ramp to get to your house, get to the entrance. If you're in a walker, you may need rails on each side of the stairs, each side of the rails, railing inside your house. You may need an electric stair lift. You may need a bathtub on the first floor of your house, a walk-in bathroom on the first floor of the house. We configure your kitchen. We configure everything inside the house. It's very, very expensive, and you're not going to be participating in that because you're in the Rehabilitation Institute. So when you get home, as happened to my father, because another member of my family was in charge of doing this, and my father didn't know this, is my father didn't recognize his house. You know? He's like 98 years old, he lived in the house for so long, and the house is beautiful. I mean, what you did was absolutely beautiful. Clean and everything like that, but it's not what he wanted. He couldn't find his underwear, for example. Couldn't find his shoes, because they'd been thrown out by an unnamed party. You know? And he was very upset by that. But in the long run, it was very good for him. Okay? So you have these choices. You can hire somebody to take care of you or whoever has been injured through an agency. You can hire someone privately. What if the person doesn't show up, isn't trustworthy? I hired 2 people to take care of my father. When my father got home, he fired them. He didn't want anybody in his house. He's very, very independent. And part of his credo really, truly is there'll be 100 on February 8th, is you just keep going. That's very simple. No matter what happens, just keep going. You don't get upset. That's how he's lived his life. And also, he eats like Ben Lane has talked about you over the years. That's my father's diet. Okay? That's not my diet, unfortunately. But that's, my father eats similar to what I gather you eat, and your physiques are very similar, incidentally. You have different colored hair, but you're very similar in a lot of ways. Very calm, very looking at things in a very considerate way. Okay, not easily upset. That's my father. Okay. So, lastly, what I found really moving is that the Physical Rehabilitation Institute were probably most people around the table in their 90s, and most of them were women, was how they bonded and supported each other. How nice you look. How nice your hair is today. What a nice smile you have on your face. What a good memory you have. How beautiful your grandchild looks in the photograph. Okay? There's no ego involved in this. And these are people who didn't know each other. And they really support each other. And that's the end of the talk.
Steve?
A comment and a question. My parents, they're older than I am.
Imagine that.
They moved in
Much
a couple of years. So that's what they tell me. They,
Show your appearance.
pardon?
They are your appearance. I'm sure that you
Keep on track.
Oh my God. They sold their split level house with the steps and they moved into an apartment complex, so they have an old age and all that. So they like to exercise, so they walk around the floors and up and down the stairs. My question is, if you said you hurt yourself running, if you injure yourself when you're out for a stroll, you still walk it off?
What actually happened is that this may be unfair, but the person is here. But there's several people here and we know about this person. Is that I had a really, 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 really bad experience with a patient whose first name begins with the letter P as in Paul. Okay? And I went jogging to try to calm
never be mentioned again.
to just sort of calm myself down. And I fell on even pavement. And I'd never done that before in my life. I've been jogging since I've been 19 years old. I must have twisted my feet against like this. And I went straight down. And I was bleeding. And my wife took me to the emergency room. And I stayed there for probably 7 hours. Okay? But and I didn't work for many days after that. What it changed is it made me more scared that I'm going to fall again. I mean, like I went jogging this morning. There's some snow, there's some ice. But I jogged very, very, very slowly. And throughout my life, I've jogged many, many miles probably on ice, over rocks, over steps, like at Georgetown, by the canal, there are a lot of steps at Georgetown University. Almost never fell. And it made me question my vulnerability to it. And it makes me jog much more slowly. And that's the result from it.
Okay, I just wanted to comment, not all rehab hospitals and facilities are created equal. I'm on staff at 2 rehabilitation hospitals. And if you were walking before you came in, by the end of that first day, they will have you up walking unless there is an orthopedic impairment. So just to have in mind, working with your patients or with family members or for yourself, ask a lot of questions. Every institution can give you their statistics on discharge, on independent discharge, discharge to assisted living, skilled nursing facilities, what percentage of patients are walking independently, how independent are they with activities of daily living. Pick the place you go, because this is not an emergency admit. But it sounds like he wasn't in a good place if he came in weak and left weaker.
makes more sense.